Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite tearjerker romances. I love books that will give me a good cry, and I have quite a few to talk about today that either made me shed a few tears or had me full on bawling my eyes out that are specifically romance based. So there's a lot of other contemporaries and like historical fiction that make me cry, but these are romance ones. I have at least 5 to talk about, so I'll hop right into it. I'll link them all down below and let me know your favorite books that give you a good cry. Like I said, I love books that give me a good cry, so definitely would love a recommendation. So the first one I have to talk about is by Colleen Hoover, and a lot of her books make me cry, and some people call them like tragedy porn or something like that, where they just love crying over them. And I do like crying over her books, but this one in particular I found to be really emotional. It is called All Your Perfects, and this one hit home for me because it is about a couple who struggles with infertility, and it actually tears apart their marriage, which that didn't happen to me. I went, got through it, had a baby, but it is about this couple. I forget their names, but it's Quinn and her husband, and they had been struggling with infertility for years, and now basically their marriage has fallen apart and don't think they're being faithful in their marriage, and they don't really respect one another, and they basically just are falling apart and falling out of love because of their struggles with infertility. So you're seeing their marriage fall apart, and then alternating chapters seeing how they met and how they fell in love. And so you're seeing this like marriage fall apart while also seeing this love blossom, and the juxtaposition of it and just seeing the differences between the two made me so sad, just thinking about how this one thing in their life really tore them apart when they seemed like they should have been together because you saw them fall in love. And I remember this one just had me crying so much, but it did have a good ending, so that's a relief. But I love this one. And then anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid will make me cry, but 2 that made me cry a lot were the first 2 that I read by her. So Forever Interrupted, a lot of people say this is her saddest book, and it is really sad. It is about a couple, I forget their name, but they had a whirlwind romance, and they got married only after knowing each other a few months. And then within like a month of getting married, the husband goes out to get Fruity Pebbles and he dies, never comes home, and that's kind of the end of their love story. Like, that's it. She loses her husband, doesn't even realize they didn't even get to fully know each other. But he never told his mom that he was married, and so when she comes to sort out his things, she discovers that he got married, and it is about this relationship between the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law, as well as you see how her and her husband met. And this one just had me crying my eyes out. It's been a couple of years since I've read it, and yeah, this one definitely got me in all the feels and made me cry. And it is a huge fear of mine, of my husband leaving, like mostly on deployment and never coming back, and so this one definitely got me in all the feels. And then another one is One True Loves, and the premise is kind of similar in a way, losing your spouse, but it is about a woman who's engaged, and I believe her, or maybe they just got married, I can't quite remember, but her and her spouse, they are separated for some reason, and his plane like gets lost or something, and so she presumes that he's dead. Everyone thinks he's died, so she moves on with her life and she gets engaged to someone else, and then all of a sudden her spouse comes back and is alive and wants to resume their life together, but it's been years. So she's kind of torn about, do I stay with the person I'm engaged to, or do I go back to the one I loved years ago? Like, where am I at in my life, and which choice is the right choice? And this one, again, just had me bawling my eyes out. So good. Taylor Jenkins Reid knows how to write tearjerker romances, and I'm here for it. The next one I have to talk to you guys about is by Candy Steiner, and it's called On the Way to You. So I've read quite a few by Candy Steiner that are tearjerkers, but this one in particular got me the most, and it is about a girl who has lived in her small town for her whole life. Her parents are drug addicts and don't really care about her. She's been a waitress at a diner for years, and she hasn't traveled, but her dream is to go to Seattle. But it's kind of difficult for her to be out on her own and everything because she has a disability. I think she has a prosthetic, and not everyone treats her the same as able-bodied people. And she meets this really handsome guy in her diner who is traveling and taking a road trip to Seattle. And when she says that that's her dream place to go, he invites her to tag along. And although she thinks he's joking, he's not. And she drops her whole life to go with him, and he's a stranger. So it's their story traveling to Seattle and navigating this random relationship that just starts from nothing. And he also is struggling with depression, and she starts reading his diary and learning about him. And she knows it's bad that she's reading his diary, but it helps her to know him better. And she really likes him because he doesn't treat her any differently than able-bodied people. And she feels very much accepted for who she is. And it is their romance. And this one, I remember, just got me so much because they both are struggling with their own demons, and they both help one another. And so that one really got to me, and I really, really enjoy it. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, it is available on there, which is great. And then another one I have to talk about, this one had me crying so much, and it was my first book by Kelly Rimmer, and it's Me Without You. And this one is about a woman who has a terminal illness, I believe, and she meets another man, and they start a romance, but she doesn't let them get too close to each other. And she eventually tells him that she has this terminal illness, and he wants to be with her regardless. And it is kind of like they know that there's an expiration date on their romance, and so she forewarns him about that. And they try not to get attached to each other, but as much as they try not to get attached to each other, they can't help it. And I believe she used to be with someone who also had the same terminal illness, and he died. And so she's still struggling with that. And I think she's having a hard time opening herself up to someone. And this one, I remember just making me cry so much. If you're not a fan of reading about terminal illness, I would steer clear of this one because it does not have quite a happy ending, but it is really good and made me have all the feels. And then another one I have to talk about is by Christina Lauren. This was my first Christina Lauren that I read, and it is Love and Other Words. And this one is probably like maybe the least tearjerker of all of them, but it was really good. It is about two childhood friends who are best friends. They're each other's first like true loves, everything, and you know that something tore them apart because it's now like over a decade later, and they haven't seen each other, and all of a sudden they get brought back together, and the girl is already engaged to someone else, but the guy has always been waiting for her, and it's like, I'm always still here for you, I still love you. And she's struggling with, do I pick the safe option of the guy I'm currently engaged to, or do I follow my heart, my true love that I loved as a child and as a teenager, and be with him, even though something happened that tore them apart. So you're seeing dual timeline of currently, and then basically their friendship growing, their relationship growing, and then you lead up to the event that broke them apart. And I remember this had me crying in the very beginning. There was like a quote in here that just like got me, and man, this one's really, really good, and it made me want to read all of Christina Lauren's books. And then the last one I have to talk about is by Paige Toon, and I was not expecting this to be a tearjerker at all because I feel like her books are more light and fluffy, but this one is The Last Piece of My Heart, and this is about a woman who is a writer. She's not a very well-known author, and she gets a job to complete a series for a writer who died. So her writing is very similar to this author's writing, and she wrote the first book, but then she died before she could write the rest of the books, like a couple more. And so the girl who's going to be like ghostwriting, she writes a blog about all of the guys that have taken pieces of her heart, and then she goes and finds them and asks for her heart back. So she writes about that, and she's hoping that by doing this ghostwriting gig that she can focus on writing a book about all her ex-boyfriends. And she does have a boyfriend who lives across the world, and they kind of both live in their own places. So she goes to the house of this author that she's continuing the series for, and she learns that she was married with a very young baby, and she died when she only had like a 6-week-old baby. So her baby was super young, and now this guy is widowed with a baby, and it is the romance between her and that dad. But it is not like cliche, her falling for this dad. It is that he is so damaged, and he loved his wife so much, and you know, their relationship starts as a friendship, and this just had me feeling so many things. She basically realizes that she wanted kids and she always accepted that she couldn't have them, and this guy has a kid, and she kind of tackles like how she feels about that, and whether or not she should stay with this boyfriend that she has been with for ages, but he lives across the world and kind of living a different life than her. And you could learn about the wife that died, and it just, yeah, this was really sad, but had a really great ending, a really great message, and I loved this one. So those are some of my favorite tearjerker romances I had to share with you. Let me know your favorite tearjerker romances. I'll link all these down below, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.